Hey, this is Dave from the Shepherd School again, and what we're going to do today is we're going to dehydrate some vegetables. Now, the reason that we're going to dehydrate some vegetables is, number one, is to save some space. Number two, to have a redundant supply of vegetables. If we use freezer vegetables, we lose power. You know, we've got to use up all of our food all at one time. But if we dehydrate it, you know, we can store it on the shelf, and as long as it's below about 20% moisture or so, it should last, you know, long as we need it to. Also, it saves a lot of weight, so it's good for, say, a bug out bag or, you know, camping or whatever, because of, once we take away the water, it's going to be lighter, and it's also going to reduce the size. These 4 bags are probably going to fit inside a pint mason jar when we're done, and so that's a huge reduction. Now, as you can see from our article on the blog, it talks about prep work for vegetables. Generally, you have to blanch, which is briefly boil the vegetables and then cool them in ice water to stop any cooking in order to set the enzyme so that it keeps the texture when you freeze them or when you dry them. But when you use freezer vegetables, all that's done for you, so that's a little tip. Saves you a lot of time having to cut and blanch and process, and it's a little cheaper too. Each one of these bags is about $1. I've seen them on sale for 75 cents or so. Sometimes it's up to about $1.50 or so a bag, but you know, that's pretty cheap compared to going to the same store and buying your fruit or vegetables. And all the prep work's done, so it's a lot quicker. So that's a tip if you're going to dehydrate. Whatever dehydrator you use for vegetables, it should be about 135 degrees, and so we'll set that. And it's also helpful if you use some sort of screen so they don't stick to your plate. Now, one of these was commercial and came with it, but I ended up buying some more nylon mesh and using the first one as a template. I cut out some extras. So basically, we don't want to overstock our dehydrator trays. So I'm going to put 1 bag per tray. Kind of break them up so that it's you know, a single layer. This looks like a lot, but once you dehydrate it, you'll be amazed at how much space you're going to save. And I really like using dehydrated vegetables, especially in stuff like soups. We do a lot of stews and chilies and different kinds of soup at our house. And so if you're going to have a slow cooker, just fill it up with water and vegetables, you know. It'll have time to rehydrate. It's a really perfect way of doing it. One of the things we're going to do later are 365 meals, where we take Mylar bags, gallon bags, and we cut them down into basically individual portion size, and then using some recipes for meals in a jar. Basically, it's usually soups where you put all the ingredients in one spot in one jar. Then you just add water and cook to get a like a bean soup or something like that. You know, this would work really good for that. All right, so put the dehydrator top on there. Set it to 135. We're going to plug this in. we're just going to let this sit. We'll come back in probably about 4 hours, but I'm pretty much going to leave it overnight. But before I go to bed, I'll open it up, and we'll probably put the top one on the bottom and mix them up that way. So we'll come back and we'll see how small they get. We've been letting this sit out. It's probably been sitting out about 16 hours or so. This morning when I woke up, took the lid off and checked it, and it was partially dried. It was still a little mushy, and so what we did is we inverted the trays, put the one on the top, the one on the bottom, the one on the bottom on the top, just like we said we would. And now it's at the crispy stage, which is where I want it. So now we're going to jar it up and put it with a vacuum seal. Because there's very little moisture left in the peppers and onions, a vacuum seal would be an appropriate method for storage. Now, something pretty interesting that you may not know, paprika is basically dried peppers. It's a type of pepper that has been dried and then ground into a powder. So you could, I guess, if you wanted to, and I'm probably going to do that one of these days, is grind this, say in a stone grinder or whatever, and make a powder and use that for flavoring. And I'll tell you, I do like cooking with these dried peppers. You'll find that once you dry them and they shrink a little bit, you're basically enhancing the flavor because it's got the same amount of flavonoids. It's just in a smaller package. You see this? That was that whole bag of peppers. I told you it'd shrink down. Way more than a quarter of its original size, or way less than a quarter of its original size. The smell of this is pretty good too. It smells just like I'm cooking peppers. So put the lid on there. Now, if I was using this, if I was planning on storing this for a long time, I probably wouldn't use my hand bleeder. I'd use my vacuum sealer because it pulls a higher vacuum. But this is just going to be vacuum sealed until I finish the other jar. So I'm probably going to bust this open in the next couple weeks or so. And so that's just to be, extra careful. So this much was those 4 big bags of vegetables. So there's a huge savings in space and savings in weight. So pretty cool. So until next time, this is David the Shepherd School. You can always check us on our blog at www.tngun.com. Thanks.